Ignite to impact.
Do you sometimes wonder about the best ways to take care of yourself, especially during tough times? Do you ask yourself, what are some of the really great self-care ideas that you can use today? Are you confused about how to start a self-care routine and make yourself a priority? Or do you wonder, how does being kind fit in to my self-care routine? We want to get answers, tips, and advice on how to deal with these questions and more in today's conversation about practicing self-care and self-kindness during difficult times. Welcome. I'm Dr. Geneva, your podcast host, bringing insightful conversations with successful people to inspire you to create extraordinary impact in your business, in your everyday personal life, and in the community. And so if you like what you hear, please listen, tell your friends, and come on and join us in this conversation. You know, one of my favorite topics is about self-care. And I believe self-care is the care that you give to you, by you, for you. And it's very important. And I don't believe it's selfish and to give yourself plenty of self-care, because self-care ain't selfish. And, you know, there's different types of self-care. We can, take care of our physical bodies through movement and exercise. We can take care of our mind through meditation and all different kinds of ways to really take care of our mind, body, and spirit. So there's lots and lots of different areas that we can practice self-care in. But I have talked to a lot of women who said to me, yeah, there's conversation about self-care, but how do we do it? Or I'll do one thing, or I don't have time for a massage, or I do have time for a massage, and that's the only thing I do. And so I like to bring to you, our listeners, lots and lots of different ways to take care of yourself, because I think that's numero uno, taking care of yourself. And I do believe having a routine of self-care so that every day that you wake up, you're going to do at least one thing to take care of yourself and build that in, institutionalize that in your everyday life and living. And to really help us and talk about how we can take care of ourselves, particularly during these difficult times, and how does self-kindness play a role, is one of my very, very dear friends and an expert in this area and all things wonderful, Margaret Tallet. We call her Peg. That's my girl, who's principal of Peg Tallet Strategic Consulting, and she's deeply committed to making sure that effective, sustainable nonprofits are core community assets. She's been active in fundraising, marketing, collaborations in arts and culture, social service. She's held leadership positions in some of the most successful organizations around, including the Detroit Zoo, the Henry Ford, Michigan Women Forward, the Music Hall for Performing Arts. And she's had a successful engagement with a number of organizations, particularly Michigan Women's Foundation, where she served as Chief Community Engagement Officer, responsible for doing all those things out in the community that make a difference in the life of people and what happens and how organizations are perceived. And she's just been there and helped so many others with her unique ability to engage folk into an organizations where she encourages others to align and have all of their things together to make a difference. And, this is so important. She has a proven record of creating these kinds of relationships. And so you may be asking, well, with someone who's such a community leader, such an expert in marketing and communication and aligning, how can she talk with us about self-care? Well, let me tell you, because in fact, she's been able to, she sees the importance and functionality of aligning. She, in fact, does that in her everyday life as she aligns herself and is such a proponent of being kind to others as well as yourself. And so she's an expert in this area. And I've learned so much that, as my listeners, I always want to bring you the best of the best. And so that's what I'm doing today. Let's say hello to Peg Tallet.
Well, Geneva, I cannot thank you enough for such a lovely and gracious introduction. I think the most important thing I would start by saying is self-care is not a good to have, it's a must have.
Yes. Oh, okay. We can put that on a bumper sticker.
Knock yourself out, sister.
Yes.
But raise money for a good charity while you do it. Okay.
Yes.
I don't think that in recent years, it's been an embarrassment for women to realize that it's important for us to say, I count. And the only way that a woman counts or a person counts is to count themselves first. So let's be honest and say, in order for us to be good to each other, to our families, to our communities, to our friends, all of that, we got to be good to ourselves first.
Mm-hmm. And I so believe that. But it's hard, Peg. It's difficult. It really is. It seems that we're always, I believe that as women, we have this extra special responsibility to nurture and take care of others. And I'm good with that. I think it's a blessing. I think it's a birthright, frankly. But while we're doing it, we seem to oftentimes forget ourselves.
We do indeed, Geneva. And I think it's the result of the last hundreds of years, but certainly the results of the last 40 years. And since we said as women that we were going to start the feminist revolution, and that put us in a position where we forgot that feminists are people too, that we're people too. And when we announced that we could do it all, it was the biggest mistake we ever made, because somehow doing it all took away permission to do it for ourselves. And I think that's a tragedy. I think it's a discipline to know yourself and what your needs are. It's the same as knowing your family and their needs, or your job and what's expected of you and how to excel. Taking care of yourself is something we need to excel at too. We need to do it in a disciplinary way. We need to do a self audit. What do you need? Not to get by, but to feel really good every day. And I think it falls in every possible realm. It's mentally, what stimulates you, what makes you think good thoughts. It's emotional, what makes your heart feel good. And it's physical. Even though you know that I've worked out for years and years and years, I have to be the first person to say, I don't love working out. But I'm happy with what it's done for me. I'm happy with the energy that it brings about. I'm happy with ease of movement. I'm happy with the quiet time of exercise where I'm the only one in my head, which is rare for me and for many women. So I think it's important for us to say, we will take care of our bodies. And it could be as simple as saying, okay, what's the most basic thing that I avoid? For many of us, it's hydration. Many of us don't drink enough water. Okay. So start today, drink one more glass of water a day. Don't take on the universe at a time. What do they say? How to eat an elephant, one bite at a time.
Right.
Sorry, animal lovers. But let's really break this down to a simplistic way to do this. I have to be honest and say, we make brutal fun of each other about binge watching TV. I think binge watching TV has kept me sane during COVID.
Me too.
Seriously. I talk to you or I talk to another friend and they say, oh, have you watched? And it's a 5 series or 5 season with 10 things. And I say, oh my God, I'll never get through it. 3 weeks later, I'm through it because I gave myself permission to watch it for an hour or an hour and a half a day or whatever felt good. Because we have not had our wonderful Detroit Athletic Club where you and I both work out and most of us have not had our gyms. I bought a membership, an online membership for a stretching class just so I would get up in the morning. And the thing I like about the routine I chose was she offers 10, 12, and 15-minute classes. So I can take 1, 2, or 3 at a time, depending on the rest of my schedule. So I give myself permission to say, all right, I've only got 15 minutes. I'll do one right now, and I'll do one this afternoon. I think part of this is the grace that we allow others. We must give ourselves.
And how did you find that stretch class?
I actually Googled different ideas, and I thought to myself, I feel like I'm losing my core. I feel like I'm not where I should be in strength. I don't sit up or stand up as tall as I did 4 months ago. I know that sounds pathetic, but it goes fast if you don't use it, right?
That's right.
You use it. So I thought to myself, I need some core work, but not just to sit down and say to myself, okay, do 60 of these kinds of crunches and do 40 of these kinds. No, it was to watch someone do it on the screen of my laptop, on the floor in my family room, and just give it up to that for that time.
Yes.
Follow it?
Yes, absolutely.
After 2 weeks, I realized, in effect, I was getting more limber. I was feeling better about it. I was listening to what she was saying. I was absorbing it. I was taking it in, and I felt better. So I think even for those of us who don't love the exercise part of it, the feeling better is good. And I'm going to be honest, even though I hate to use the age word, as we age, we need to give our body all the help it can get to stay agile and healthy and feel good. Getting up in the morning with aches and pains isn't for me. If I can battle it, I'm going to do it.
Right. And, you said so much in that, just such, really great. I do love the binge and sitting and watching, particularly the old shows like Good Times and Jefferson and, the old shows that I used to watch all the time.
Totally.
One of the techniques that I use is I will binge, but I won't sit in my seat for more than 30 minutes. So I'll take a break every 30 minutes or so. I'll stand up, I'll move around, because we do know that sitting is like the new smoking. So I will do that, but I will binge because it's fun. I'm like a kid again, which I think is another self-care technique, that we need to be kids again, And then I love how you talked about your approach to stretching, and how you said, well, you don't have to do it all. It doesn't have to be the total universe. And so you started out doing a piece here and a piece there, and then you turned around 2 weeks later and there was a difference.
Absolutely. I think that we really need to realize that our approach to ourselves must become nonjudgmental. We ask others not to judge us, but we judge ourselves harshly. And I have never been a good athlete, but I have tried everything just to keep my body moving and just to get the positive results of it. And everyone at the DAC has always joked about the fact that for 6 months I swim 3 days a week like a crazy woman. And then the next year I do a marathon relay walking with girlfriends, or I do something, it's just, for me, I have to keep it up different and admit to myself up front, I am not a talented athlete, but I'm a talented liver. And for me, living means feeling good and having my body feel good and giving myself permission to do that, even though I have no talent in the area. Doesn't matter. Like you say, you get up at the end of 30 minutes. I've been saying to my girlfriends, if you want to take 20 minutes or 15 minutes or some amount of time and play some music that you love, don't sit and listen to it. Dance to it.
That dance. Oh my goodness.
Move in your own
Yes.
house. Close the door if you don't want anybody to see you.
Absolutely. And I understand you can ask Alexa to play party music, and Alexa will do her thing, and you can just dance and dance to it.
Absolutely. I have a friend of mine who said, I don't care what people think. She's doing it in her driveway now.
Yes, absolutely. Why not?
Good for her.
Really, why not? And, I think that's, in my own view, I think that's the basis of when we talk about self-care. That, and I love how you put a self-care technique is to be non-judgmental. Because I think it is whatever we want to do that helps us and helps us build our capacity to deal with life and living is okay. And that we, it's okay. So dance in your driveway. So what? I remember I was just a couple of days ago, Peg, I was out shopping. Oh, now see, that's something in pandemic, so this was a new experience with me. But I went with my daughter and my grandchildren, and, my daughter was like, hey, we're going to be in here for about 20, 30 minutes and we gone. It's not going to be a big, long thing. But I was in the store, one of these stores, well, not one of these stores. We only went to one, really. And they were playing music, and I raised my hands and started snapping my fingers, and I was just dancing, and people were looking at me, and you know what, Peg? I didn't care because they didn't know me. I was doing it for me. And so how do we do things for ourselves? How do we make ourselves a priority? How do you make yourself a priority?
Geneva, that's so interesting because priority is a key word. We prioritize in every other area of our lives but ourselves. Daily, I prioritize what my commitments to my clients are and to the work I do. And I prioritize what my husband needs. And I prioritize what I need to ask others to do, all of those things. But I don't do the same thing for myself always, which makes me realize, while I go out of my way to respect others, I need to respect myself. And respecting yourself is admitting that in the equation of balance, it's your home and your family, your work, your friends, whatever else you have in that line, plus self equals happiness. You are a component of your own happiness. You're a component of your own peace of mind. I say I was so fortunate to be born an upbeat and optimistic person, but I have, during these last few months, been challenged with what's going on in the world socially and with the pandemic and with so many things that I find for the first time in my life somehow overwhelm me. I've given myself permission to embrace that for a few minutes and then talk myself out of it with all the good things I have in my life. Sometimes I just want to thank God and thank the universe for what I have, that I can walk, that I can see, that I can hear, little tiny things. And I think if we find joy in those little tiny things, in a moment of prayer or in a moment of meditation or just in a quiet moment, the joy just seeps through our bodies because that's what we're meant to feel. A friend of mine said to me, I love to bake. And she said, to be honest with you, I'd rather bake at 4 a.m. when no one's in my damn kitchen. And I said, you know what?
Yes.
Bake at 4 a.m. If you love to bake and it brings some joy into your life, and maybe it's the quiet of your kitchen at that time, and it's the smell of the chocolate chips, but most of all, it's the time to just be with yourself. Do that. I think this is unprecedented in the history of the world as we've known it in our lives. I realize and I appreciate the fact there have been other pandemics and that we are certainly blessed. We have a roof over our homes, which many people don't. We have so many blessings, but it's okay to say, this bothers me too. I think this is part of self-care, is kindness to yourself to say, it's not a weakness. It's being human. We work hard on being human in all the other ways.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break and let yourself feel like, I can't watch the news right now. I just can't take one more minute of it.
Yeah, yeah. That's so, insightful, that whole aspect of, stop and give yourself a pat on the back. You're good. You've made it this far. Give yourself credit, I think, is an important thing. And as part of a self-care portfolio, I know I had to, one of the things that occurred to me, Peg, and, it's probably natural and normal, probably everybody else in the world has thought about it, but I had to stop and say to myself, I've never been through this before, this pandemic thing, and no one that I know has been through it. And so it's all new, and no one in the world has the answers. And, there's no rule book, guidebook, framework. So I'm really creating it as I go. I'm really making it up as I go. And so therefore, whatever I do, I'm not sure there's standards or anybody to say, no, that's not right.
No, but there's someone to say, yes, it's right. And that's
absolutely.
You.
That's right.
You.
Exactly. And so this discovery of, my heart bleeds for, all the suffering that goes on. And this is not to say that isn't a real feeling that I feel. And I also feel the opportunity to do more of me, for me, to me, in terms of self-care. Do you feel that way?
I do, Geneva. And it's really funny because until you asked me to join you in this discussion, I hadn't thought about it that way. And shame on me for not being more disciplined about this kind of thing with myself. I had just been dealing with I'm a little shaky today, and then prep myself for that day. But, a long while ago, actually, a few years ago, I realized that the best thing I could do for myself was to eliminate the people who took more than they gave me, because it was difficult, and it was a drag, and it was energy suck, and it was a love suck, and it was all the things I didn't want around my life at this point in my life. And I think we have to be disciplined about that too, because it sounds judgmental, but I think we have to say, if someone asks more of you all the time, and you realize they're not giving and you're not getting joy from it, free yourself from that. And that's how I feel about overexposure to the media right now. Well, it's important to be informed. I literally cry sometimes when I watch the news. And I thought to myself, don't do that unless you leave with a thought about how you can make the world a better place. When you see this, you and I, Geneva, have had amazing conversations during this pandemic that helped me so much. But it was because I sought your help as a friend and an ally. Find your friends and allies, people.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to ask for their help. Be honest with what's bothering you. Take advantage of the love you've given them, because they want to give it back. The advice you've given, they want to share their experience. Everyone's flattered to be needed. Need people. I think that's it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. Talk to me about kindness. I know you and I have had many conversations about being kind. Certainly being kind to other people, but also being kind to ourselves.
It's interesting. I think we are all a product of where we came. And I used to make brutal fun of my mom because she was the kindest, sweetest person in the world. But I used to say to her, I'd go home to upstate New York, and I get there, and the person at the grocery store would say to me, oh my God, I saw a picture of you the other day that your mom showed me doing such and such a thing. And I would say to my mother, really? But what I realized was the connection that she made with those people. That kindness she showed them to share her life with them meant so much to them. And whether it's little things like if you walk across a mall and someone's cleaning the floor, thank them for that. If you see someone that's just doing their work, acknowledge the importance of their work to you. Kindness is tiny things. It's in the amount of time we walk past another human being. It's making eye contact. We can't smile now. I am suffering from wanting to see people smile. I work with 30 new people, and most of them I've never seen their face. So it's like, how do we get around these things? And I think it's little tiny things. Compliment someone on what they're doing or what they've said or what something they have on, something tiny, just open your heart up to say something to another person that will reach into their hearts.
But how does that fit in to me taking better care of myself if all this is about doing tiny things, wonderful, kind things for others?
It's not an either or. It's a both. But I'll tell you, I believe strongly, and I've been thinking about this so much in the last few years of my life, after I lost my mom and started finding myself sharing more with grocery store people. It's the act of kindness isn't just for the person that you're being kind to. It's doing something good for you too. It makes you feel good too. And I think right now, particularly when the world is so topsy-turvy and when we're all so concerned about the fate of others in our community and in the world, in the most profound and deep ways, little tiny things that you say to make someone feel good makes you feel good. Be in that moment of reaching out and touching them. We all, I think, are suffering from all the things we can't do to change the bad stuff right now. So let's change the things we can change. And sometimes just a human connection changes someone's day. I know it changes mine a lot. And I think those little tiny things are never a one-way street. And they don't take a lot of time. I think we all think, to be nice to others, I need to give 3 hours a week to a charity, or I need to do this, or I need to do that. That may or may not work in your schedule right now. But being nice to a person that you see on a street or in a store, or a conversation with a friend or your neighbor or your mail person, that fits into your life.
It's just so insightful, I think, because from many different perspectives, but one of the perspectives that, really resonates with me is the ability to make a difference. And what you're saying is that there's so much going on today, nationally, locally, in our own communities, in our own lives, that sometimes we feel, oftentimes, well, I know I do, feel overwhelmed with it all. And how can I change something? How can I make a difference? How can I do something? And sometimes we just really can't, or we feel we can't. But doing tiny things, like you say, of kindness, just smiling, just as you said, congratulating or thanking someone that you see doing something. And that could be friends and family. That could be the people you're sheltered with. Really can make a difference. And I just love that aspect of being able to make a difference by practicing kindness to others and to yourself. It's a both. I love that both and proposition.
Absolutely. And although you can't see the smile on their face, you can see the smile on their eyes. And it's just, I laughed the other day at the grocery store. I was trying to reach something I couldn't reach. And someone came over and said to me, let me help you get that. But we have to be socially distanced, Right. And it was just this moment where we just connected as people. I thanked him. We laughed, So it's just tiny things. I can't do the big things by myself. But if we all put kindness out into the world, that's the biggest, best, most effective way to combat the things that are happening. Negativity is only won over by light, by goodness, you know?
Yes,
There's only total darkness unless there's a little bit of light. And when there's a little bit of light, it changes the darkness. And I think we should all remember that and concentrate on that. And find someone who you like. I love the spiritual approach of Marianne Williamson, and I sometimes will just click on her website and read a thought. Just read a thought.
Yes.
Do something between the time everyone else in your house goes to bed and you go to bed, whether it's really prayer or mindful thought or a little self-indulgence. I'm going to tell you a secret. I made a list of movies I love, movies I've always wanted to see, and I'm ticking them off.
Oh, I love it.
Last weekend, I watched Betty Davis and All About Eve.
Oh my
gosh.
I
thought,
it's one of my favorites.
What a joy. What a joy.
Oh my goodness.
They're out there, they're available. And it was just watching the artistry of a movie in that era. Yeah. Thinking about the good and bad in people. Yeah. But giving yourself a minute of quiet, you know.
Oh, I love that. And, if, one time, you can Google like the top 100 movies and, all from the Academy Awards and all these different criteria that they use to judge the top 100 movies. And you could do that and you could tick that off. Oh, I love, I'm going to do that because I'm a movie freak. And, and not being able to go to the movie theater, so I've had to recreate all of that in my house. And, it's pretty cool. I'm having a good time. But this whole idea about, getting the top 100 and movies and just ticking them off. I love it. Well, you see, I'm just saying to my listening audience, Peg, that they can now see very clearly where I had to have you on. And, one of the things that I know I practice, or I tried to practice so much, and I do have in my self-care toolbox, is gratitude. And as we're winding down, I'd like to ask you, what are you most grateful for?
Oh my gosh, Neva, that is such a wonderful question. I am grateful for the love of my family and friends. I am grateful for the love of my coworkers. I'm grateful for the love of my neighbors. I'm grateful that I've reached a point in my life where with friends and colleagues like you, we end phone conversations by saying, I love you. Mm-hmm. It's not just reserved for family anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's not just reserved for our spouses or our children. I'm grateful that we've reached a time in humanity where that expression is used more frequently, is acknowledged more meaningfully, and it fills my heart every time I hear it or say it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Peg Tallet, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us just some wonderful strategies and tips, starting from the, taking us back to the feminist movement and this idea that we could do it all and somehow we lost that we needed to do it for ourselves, to this technique of doing a self-audit and not being judgmental about us, and how non-judgment of ourselves is in fact a self-care strategy, and sharing with us that in fact you are a talented liver of life and you find joy in so many things, particularly the tiny things, and how in the tiny things we can find ourselves and kindness, and that how this whole concept about how kindness is a connecting link, connecting us to others, but also connecting us to ourselves. And, the simplicity and deepness of saying please and thank you. You have just helped us understand how we can practice self-care and self-kindness during these difficult times. And I thank you for being with me. I'm going to have you back again, because you and I, we've had such deep conversations about things that are happening in the world today and what we can do. And so I'm going to have you back, and we're going to have a another deep conversation.
Geneva, thank you so much. And to all the people who listen to your podcast, good for you for making a priority in your life to spend some time thinking with Dr. Geneva or with everyone she has on. Good for you for taking that time for yourself, because that by itself is self-care.
I appreciate you and I love you. And I
love you, Geneva.
Yes. And I want all of our listeners to know that this kind of conversation, I think, is really what makes a difference in our lives today, where we can talk and listen and share perspectives and, do that sort of good stuff. And remember that I want you to know that these tips that you've heard today from our guest and others on various podcasts, and other tips and strategies, I put in a new ebook bundle about why worry and how to stay positive. And I give tons of tips and advice and how-tos about how to make it through these difficult times and to, really cast worry aside and how you can really stay positive. And you can go to my website. I want you to come to my website anyway and join my email community if you haven't. It's drgenevaspeaks.com. That's DRGENEVA Speaks, SPEAKS.com. Come on over, join my community. And listen to these podcasts, whether you want better results in your life, career, community, or you're just eager to hear some great leadership advice, or you just want to be inspired to make good things happen. This is the podcast for you. So till the next time, for a better world and legacy that matters.
Ignite to impact.